But first, more and more, it seems, when it comes to this constitutionally entrenched Indigenous voice to the Parliament, we're going to be asked to vote on the vibe, not any specific proposal. As the Australian newspaper reports today, the government, quote, is increasingly unlikely to put out a detailed plan on how the voice would work before next year's national vote. One of the voice's key supporters, Professor Megan Davies, says, and I'll quote again, "Going out with a fully fledged detail is dangerous because the nation needs to vote on the amendment, not the model." As if anyone should be asked to vote on something without knowing what precisely that something is. Another voice supporter, Professor Tom Calma, says the detail will only be decided, quote again, once the referendum passes. Clearly what voice advocates want is for voters to give them a blank cheque where they can then fill in the amount later. Now, does that make sense to you? It shouldn't, because it's wrong. This is our nation's founding document. We don't ask politicians in the Parliament to vote for something that isn't spelt out clearly in the legislation, yet that's what these politicians expect from you. Remember the words that the Albanese government wants to put into our constitution. There shall be a voice, it says, and that it may make representations to the Parliament and the executive government on matters relating to Indigenous people. That's all they're telling us. And believe me, in legislation, the simpler the sentence, the more open-ended it is and the bigger the truck you can drive through it. So if it passes, there will be a voice, whatever that is, however it's elected, and it may make representations to the Parliament and the government about anything at all to do with Aboriginal people, which of course is everything. And because it's entrenched in the Constitution, the High Court will sit in judgment on whether the government has adequately allowed these representations to be made. As the Prime Minister himself says, only a brave government would ignore the voice's advice. Yet we're expected to vote on this voice without knowing anything for sure. How it'll be selected, who'll be part of it, who'll vote for it, how it'll be funded, how much funding it will get, paid for, of course, by you, and how this whole business of making representations would work. More and more, it all brings to mind Paul Keating's advice. If you don't understand it, don't vote for it. And if you do understand it, you'd never vote for it anyway.